Hello and welcome to Adventures with ADHD, where each week, month, year, whatever, I shine the spotlight on a fabulous ADHDer. And this week, I've got the fabulous Abi Lemon with me today. So, hi, Abi. Thank you for coming.
Hi, so lovely to be here, Susie.
Thank you. So let's dive straight in. Let's find out a bit more about Abi Lemon. So tell us what you do, where you come from, to
All that
start.
jazz. All right.
All that
Okay,
jazz.
so I'm a brand strategist, positive psychology coach, and business coach for ADHD business owners. I come from the south coast of the UK, so I live right by the sea in Christchurch in Dorset. Yeah, and that's it really. What else do you want to know?
Lovely. Okay. Well, let's hear about a bit more about your coaching and how you got into working with ADHD folk in your coaching.
Okay, so buckle up. I long story short, I ran a brand agency for a number of years. That was kind of my what I felt was my calling at the time. It was successful. I was working with, multi-million pound clients, big projects, lots of projects, really, really stressful. And I managed to burn myself out in my business a couple of years ago. Yeah. So what happened was when the pandemic hit, which I know lots of people's stories always start with, oh, and when COVID-19 happened, I had the opportunity to kind of take a bit of a pause because all of my corporate clients just went, do you know what? We're not really spending money on branding or design or strategy or anything at the moment. So we're just going to kind of cancel what we were going to do and just see what happens. So it left a really big kind of gap time-wise and financially in what I was doing, but it gave me the time to really think about what it was I loved about the work I was doing and what it was and what I didn't like. What I really love is the connecting with people, the coaching around purpose, mission, vision, values, and goals, all of the stuff I was doing as a brand strategist. But what also, so I did a few extra qualifications. I was a coach anyway, but kind of just up leveled a little bit with that, and started as a business coach and kind of just was focusing on the consulting and coaching side. As part of that, I started a master's degree in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology. And as part of that degree was when I actually got diagnosed with ADHD. So that it was kind of like a really roundabout way of getting my diagnosis. But it was at that point it suddenly just went like all the pieces just, how it kind of clicked into place. And I was thinking like, my goodness, all of so much of my past all made sense with ADHD. There's lots to unpack with things that kind of that have happened to me before, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is it, and it just really sparked something in me, which is why I now work with ADHDers, especially late diagnosis ADHDers, because I just think it's so important for them to develop self-love, self-compassion, and really, really not kind of let it be a stumbling block, but let it be something that that allows them to develop self-knowing, to grow their business, whatever. It's a really important time, I think, at the moment for us as ADHDers. And yeah, it just kind of it made me realize my purpose is actually to really support others in the same way that perhaps I probably needed support but didn't have it back then. So yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, totally understand where you're coming from with that. So was there a realization when you were doing the positive psychology course that connected you to the possibility of ADHD? How did that happen?
Well, to be honest, I'd seen a lot of people posting on LinkedIn and just generally about ADHD, and I'd always thought, oh, probably I resonate with those things. I'm probably ADHD. I kind of knew that I was, but I wasn't in a rush to go and get a diagnosis because, A, it takes ages, B, if you pay privately, it costs a lot of money. But part of what my university offer is they have an educational psychology team that will do assessments of ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, all of those kind of things so that you can get the support that you need. So I thought, well, do you know what? Why not? I might as well go. And it's a sort of subsidized cost. I'll go and have it done. And I was diagnosed as dyspraxic and ADHD. And I was like, okay. And I initially thought it wouldn't affect me. I thought, oh my God, I'll just get the diagnosis. I'll get the
Yeah,
extra support. It'll be fine. But that kind of embarked on a bit of a journey of, how can I explain it? Like a bit of a roller coaster emotionally, really. You know, there's a sense of grief, there's a sense of anger, a sense of almost denial as well. Like, oh, maybe I'm not ADHD, and maybe I just said the things I thought they wanted me to say. And, you know, all of this kind of up and down journey that I went on, and kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, really. I wasn't expecting it to.
yeah. No, it is like you say, it's a roller coaster, isn't it? And
Mm.
yeah, and dyspraxia as well. Was that a surprise, or was that something you'd
I've
consider?
never really considered it, but it makes total sense when you know, when you look at it. I'm not the most coordinated of people. I'm terrible when it comes to like seeing like a moving object, and you know, all the things like, you know, I'm not very good at throwing stuff or catching stuff or hitting things with a bat or anything like that. I've always been terrible at those things, but I just thought that was just me being useless. But actually I think it's probably the dyspraxia. That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing. ADHD rarely travels alone, or I don't think it ever
Mm,
travels alone, does it? So there's all the often I'm really aware that my hair keeps disappearing. Sorry, it's very distracting. Um, the co-occurring conditions that yeah. So talk being dyspraxic, that's, you know, I'm sure there are many people watching and listening to this that can resonate with the you know, the challenges with motor skills and
yeah.
coordination. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It,
And I've always held my pens weird, and I've always not had, you know, good writing. And I know those are just, you know, things on their own that can be, but it just all this, you know, when you, it's only when you get the diagnosis, you start putting the jigsaw pieces together from the, you know, the years that you've been alive and the challenges that you've had. So,
yeah. And how do you feel about yourself now? You talked about that you wanted to help other people
mm.
find out who they are and accept themselves. So what's your journey of acceptance been like?
Wow. I've always, I think I've really struggled with self-worth, with feeling good enough, you know, all of the things that a lot of people, I think, with ADHD or other diversities struggle with over the years. I think it came to a really big, like, what's the word, like point when I was in corporate. The reason I set up my business was because I ended up getting essentially managed out of my corporate job because I was completely burnt out. It was all the symptoms, now I realize, of ADHD. You know, all the stuff that I was struggling with was totally ADHD, but I didn't know it. I just thought I was crap and I couldn't do the job, and I was really, you know, having difficulties. I ended up going through a huge burnout, and just getting actually diagnosed with bipolar 2. And I don't, now I look back, I mean, they medicated me for the bipolar, which didn't work. They did all sorts of stuff. None of it really had an impact on me. It was only, you know, I just had to go through this process and, you know, and kind of come to terms with who I was as a person. And so that, and looking back, I believe it probably wasn't bipolar. It was probably in it because I've never had any other symptoms. I think it was probably just a huge emotional distress caused by undiagnosed ADHD, being kind of misunderstood, having to work 800 times harder than anybody else just to kind of do the same thing, and always feel like I didn't fit in, and always feel like I wasn't good enough. That was the journey, and I think that's that. And after kind of 46 years of that, it takes its toll, and it's a big deal. And now I think what the diagnosis has given me, and especially as I'm in perimenopause now, and I'm like, all the changes are happening, the whole ego is getting like completely like shot to pieces, and it's just like, who the hell am I, who are you, you know?
Yeah.
All of that has really helped, the diagnosis, all of this stuff, of this self-acceptance, and actually knowing that I'm a good person, knowing that I'm not, you know, crap at everything like I thought I was, or I just had to work really hard and couldn't deal with the anxiety of it all, and all of this. But actually I'm just a unique person in the way I think and the way I feel, and it's just the way I do it. And you know, so it has been a massive journey, and I never in a million years thought I would get to this point in life where I feel good about myself in the way that I do. And it's got nothing to do with, you know, how I look or dress, you know, all of that stuff. I mean, I'm showing up today, I've got no makeup on, I'm just, you know, I've had a nap, so my hair's a little bit everywhere. But I don't, I'm just, that's, I know that it's who I am, and I'm not afraid to be myself in front of people. And, you know, especially in business where we have to be visible to a certain extent. It has been a journey, yeah, but somehow, you know, I've kind of clawed. I'm not saying it's always every day's perfect, but it's having that diagnosis and that the self-discovery that it kind of prompts has been, oh my God, life-changing, really. So
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? And every client I work with, every person I speak to who's ADHD, these feelings of like lack of self-worth, low self-esteem, the internal inner critic that developed over the years. Why can't you just do this? I must be stupid. You know, that was my thing. So it's so liberating and empowering, isn't it? To realize that yes, there are challenges, but that's not your fault, you know?
yeah, it's incredible. It's such a realization. And then I think that's where the grief of the diagnosis comes from, is this, and then the anger. Well, why didn't anyone spot this before? Why did I have to struggle for all of those years when I didn't, you know, I didn't need to? I could have, you know, the playing field wasn't actually level, which I thought it kind of was, but actually, you know, from an equitable place, we're not all coming from the same level. So you go through that, you know, grief and anger about what could have been. And I know that's not something you can change or anything, and it's probably made me who I am now, but it's definitely part of the process that you go through after diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just like diagnosis, that's it, all great. There's a period of self-discovery, grief,
You're like,
yes. But with all this wonderful stuff mixed in too. What was I gonna say? Why do you think so many, particularly women, are missed and potentially misdiagnosed as well?
um, I think, don't get me started. Okay, so one reason, it shows up differently for girls. So I think girls are more daydreamers. They try harder. We are culturally and sociologically conditioned to people please as women. That's just what we do. So we're not the little boy bouncing off the walls at school and being really naughty and everything else. You know, sometimes it does show up like that, but more often than not, it's different. And that's why it's not so understood. And as women as well, and as girls, we are really good at masking and just getting on with stuff and just being the people we are supposed to be, because that's culturally, you know, patriarchally, whatever, we are designed to that's how we survive, or how we've known life. So that's all of those reasons, you know, slightly different symptoms, behavioral things that we just do as women, I think contribute to that. Also, I think medicine and modern psychiatry, I say modern, but from, you know, when it's been around from the Victorian times, women are seen as, you know, hormonal, hysterical, overreactive, drama. You know, it's all to do with just being, it's, you know, it's a change of life. It's a, you know, womanly, her womb is like wandering around her body, you know, those kind of things. It's and we are told that actually when we have feelings and emotions that are not men's emotions and are not male, they're wrong. So it's, you know, that's why we mask, and that's why we, you know, we don't kind of necessarily have the same openness around our ADHD, and amongst other things. And I think that's why we get misdiagnosed with generalized anxiety, with anxiety, you know, with bipolar, with all of those. I think borderline personality disorder is another one that seems to come up quite a lot as a when really what we're dealing with is just so much trauma and so much repressed emotional stuff that comes from being probably neurodiverse and just not knowing what it is, and not being free or able to get that diagnosis and that little freedom thing. So
Yeah, thank you. There's so much to it, isn't there? And people just don't realize until you start having these conversations. It's like, of course, you know, and I just hope that people realize or stop blaming themselves, you know. That's the thing.
Yeah. I think, and if you suspect that you might be ADHD, or it's something you kind of read somebody's post, or you look at it and you think, oh my God, that's me. There's loads of self-tests. There's so much information out there at the moment. You don't have to be put off by the fact there's like 3 years of waiting list or however, there's ways you can self-identify and self-diagnose with it and start helping yourself. So we are in this amazing world now where we've got access to all of this information. We've got access to amazing, people publicly talking about their ADHD, like you and like others. And so it is a world now where I think if you do identify with it, just go and start that process of helping yourself and finding ways around it, because you don't necessarily need a medical diagnosis to start doing that. Obviously that's helpful if you want to explore medication and all those things, but there's lots out there to get the ball moving and the cycle going. So
yeah, and that's so true. There's things you can do today. You don't have to wait. If you've got a 2-year waiting list, just like you say, find out some communities and find ways to help yourself. Definitely. Thank you. So what to finish off then, what advice or tip would you give to somebody that's newly diagnosed and is perhaps a bit lost?
I think the biggest thing is have compassion for yourself and explore all of those feelings that you have, because none of them are wrong. If you are feeling a bit lost, if you are feeling angry, grief stricken like I was, and all of those things, explore all of that within yourself, whether you do that by talking to someone else with ADHD. So you might be a coach, it might be a friend, it might be just somebody in a community, of other ADHDs or other neurodiverse people. Work through it, talk through it, and just sit with it and feel it, because it's entirely right to have all of those emotions. And part of your journey is to feel those and to kind of come out of the other side a different person, really, just a more accepting, a kinder, a more self-compassionate person.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Abi. It's been great having you on, and really helpful. Thanks so much.
Lovely. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.